The ICN is a full volunteer-run organization, and it takes a lot of volunteer labor to do this thing. So thank you to all these amazing people who put in tons of hours with us every year to pull the ICN together for you. They're all working for you behind the scenes. I do want to highlight four people that we just added to the team. Uh, and that is Sibo Rafe, who just came on to help us with workshops. Our ICN workshops is a new series we've got going on. Tom Summers, who's bringing the sunshine, looking for places and to highlight success stories and things to help you keep your chin up. Mike Donatello up there is going to be doing scheduling programming for Seekers and Allies. He's going to be looking for speakers and topics for next year for this program on Mondays. And then we've got Dr. Malika Kortastrami, who has joined us to be and is really active on doing some research on skills gaps that are existing today between employers and the market. So, guys, so much going on, so many volunteers. Thank you to all who are helping us. If you're new to us, make sure you go to the website where you can share your profile. You can find jobs there that people have listed from, that they know about that whether they're 1 or 2 degrees away. You can please do also join the LinkedIn group. It's the only place when you guys talk to each other apart from these events here, these virtual events. We have a series going on LinkedIn where we're highlighting several of our job seekers today. It is our Active Insights Job Seeker Spotlight series. Three of these folks have been spotlighted just in the last week. We've got another 3 or 4 or 5 coming this week. If you're looking for an opportunity to get your profile out there to more people, make sure you follow this link. And I'll put this deck in the chat here in a second, so you can all follow it later. Lots of things going on out there. We're getting ready for fall, and so we'll be out there. The ICE will be out there at CRC. We will be there at TMRE in Denver, and we've got discounts for you. They're all right here. We do have one spot remaining on the volunteer team in Denver for TMRE if you're looking for that for a chance in. Also, there is a new release from the Career Club, if you know Bob Goodwin, called Reimagine. It's a platform to AI platform to help you make your way through your career, and like it's kind of an AI assistant for your career. So I'll put all this in the chat, but you can find it at insightscareernetwork.org, especially our upcoming workshop series with two folks that have been great ICN allies for a while now, starting with Aaron Cruikshank. Aaron is doing a hidden job market for market research series or one part series happening on September 2nd. That is free with a $25 donation recommended. Also, we're starting something new. It's a September cohort learning series with Blake Hudson. It's 4-part learning series, and it lasts for 4 weeks on Wednesdays for an hour. Blake's going to help you go through his exercises to help you build your confidence so when you're out there looking for jobs, you can present who you really are and your strengths confidently, because that really comes through in job search and when you're building a business. And it's not everybody's, go-to. They're not automatically confident, not everybody. So it takes some skill building. Blake Hudson's going to help you get there with this really great series. I'll put a link in there now. And then, of course, we've got this recurring series that we started with Z Johnson recently to help you go from go from being an AI note taker, using AI as a note taker, to really using it in your market research and your day to day. This is a great series. It only happens. It only takes an hour to build your skill set, and you'll be building agents before you know it. Z has really made it really accessible. I really recommend the session. We've got a few grants available for this one. Again, link will be in the chat here in a second. Now, I'll stop talking and we'll bring up Chelsea Popejoy to tell us about what's going on in real life and events. Chelsea is not here.
I'm
So,
here.
oh, you are here. Oh, good. There you are.
I'm Sarah.
Chelsea. I
Yeah.
mean, Sarah Weber.
It's all good.
Sarah, I'm
Chelsea's
sorry,
the head of the
Sarah. Come on,
committee.
Sarah.
All good, all good. Happy Monday, everybody. we're all still getting our cup of coffee here. I'm still waking up too. But yeah, thanks for being with us. So we're lots of things going on in the Insights community. Each session, we try and highlight some things going on around the Insights world. There's always tons going on. This is just a few of the things that I pulled out of the events list. In addition to the great conferences that Brian mentioned were going on, CRC, we've got some great events going on at the institutions, the educational institutions that do Insights programs. So UTA Mavericks Conference is coming up in September, Spartan Insights Conference. And then I also wanted to mention there's just lots of stuff going on in your local communities, like a little bit lighter meetups. Insights Association is always great about hosting those in local places. And they've been doing some really fun ones lately. So you can see some baseball games on the board over there, St. Louis Cardinals, the Salt Lake City Beavs, they're going to do a baseball game there. And also Pilates on the Lake. That's a new one for me. So if you're in Chicago and you love Insights and Pilates, there's an event for you. I'm going to leave the list of events pages that we pull these things from in the chat for you, so you can go ahead and check them out on your own. But yeah, don't be shy. Get out there. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Of
Sarah. I don't know.
course.
Sarah has been doing this for I don't know how long, like 2 years. I don't know why I blanked on it. Thank you so much for doing that, Sarah. And y'all, really, there's no excuse not to get out there. A lot of these events have been coming down in price and making it more accessible than ever. So get out there, see what's going on in your neck of the woods. It's worth investing in yourself. I will be a keynote speaker coming up October 2nd in Boston at a one-of-a-kind new event that is being provided by the Insights Association, sponsored by the Maine Insights Association, run by the local chapter, and especially the students who are in this area. So they are running the students in these marketing and insights chapters and groups within universities are running this chapter, this conference, this inaugural student conference. So I'm pleased to be the keynote speaker there. October 2nd in Boston. Hope you can make it. We'll be
What?
what? Yes, that's true in Boston. And I hope, look, if you want to connect with some folks, you need to get to talk to some other folks. Make sure you come on this Friday. We have an open, unscripted Friday forum that happens every Friday. This Friday, we'll be talking more about success stories, and we have some other folks who'll be sharing the things that they've gone through. We have had several success stories lately, people getting jobs because of their engagement with the ICN in a lot of cases. Uh, so come find out what they're doing and get some hints. And then also, Bob Goodwin Career Club will be here on the 28th and he'll go over some of that reimagined stuff. So anyway, make sure you subscribe to those. Now, let's bring up Lori Walker, who's been Dr. Lori Walker, who's been bringing up doing all this programming for us this year. All these things that you've seen this year on Mondays, that's Dr. Lori's work. So, Dr. Lori, thank you so much for
Hey,
what you've done this year. And you want to tell us what's going on, what's coming up before we get into today's program?
sure. Next time we have Lisa Stryker, who's like a job coach and a leadership coach. And she's going to tell us about her resilience framework. And I've seen her speak. She's really dynamic. I'm excited to welcome her. And coming up, we got Priscilla Chung, who's going to tell us about how you can flip the narrative on something you perceive as a disadvantage, could be your strongest differentiation. And I'm also working on a panel, still working on who's going to be in that panel, but we're going to talk about applying cultural intelligence and research because we're not just about helping you find a job, we're about helping you become a better researcher too. So, and then also coming up, I'm very excited to have the CEO of Sago, former CEO of Insights Association, Melanie Courtwright, talking about leadership. But today, well, actually, before I go on, I'm very happy to welcome Mike as going to be the person who's going to be working on this meeting topics for next year. So we have a session coming up where we're going to talk about what you want to hear about. So please if you have ideas, put it in the chat about what you'd like to hear about.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. Before we get on with today's program, I do want to bring up Scott Worthshe if he's here. Scott, are you here?
I am here, Brian.
All right. Well, I
Brian,
will go and fill a spot for him. We are looking
Brian, do you hear me?
the fundraising team for the ID into the program
I think Brian's
we'll
internet
talk
is
about.
fuzzing.
Oh, Scott is here. Scott.
I am here. I'll take it from here because one of the things we're trying to do is grow ICN. We want to do more, serve more people, build a greater presence within market research and insights community. To do that, we need money. And so most of all of my career, I've been a client-facing guy. I've been out talking to people and bringing in the deals and overseeing the research. I need some people that are comfortable or even practiced or want to be outreach. It's going to be very simple. We're going to go out into the community and we are going to tell people what ICN is doing, tell them the kind of benefits that we can bring to their companies, and seek for them to financially support us. A small team that I'm trying to build, go out and raise some money so we can do a whole lot more of what we do. My email is at the bottom there. If you are interested, let me know. And this does pay some money. And I will tell you all about the details. But for people that want to be able to jump in, add to your resume, and perform this kind of vital function for the support of ICN, let me know. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. We'll get into more of that. You look if you're looking for more information, look at Scott, look at me. We'll we'll help you out. Steer you in the right direction. Now, Lori, please, let's talk about Steve.
Yes, please. Help me welcome Steve Levine, who I met a couple of years ago working with the Accessibility Insights Consortium, which he'll tell you all about. But we're here to learn how to be better researchers. So, and that includes things like accessibility and equity and inclusion. So today he's going to share about how researchers can begin making studies more inclusive without, draining the budget or overwhelming you. So he'll discuss simple improvements that can help expand participation, improve data quality, and benefit everybody, not just people with disabilities. So as you can see, Steve is used to has experience with Microsoft, Apple, Johnson and Johnson, Aramark, Blue Cross. So he brings a wealth of experience, and he's also the founder of Strat 360, a customer insights consultancy. So please help me welcome Steve Levine. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Thank you, doctor. I knew Lori before she was a doctor. I actually saw her go through this entire journey, which is just amazing. And thank you, Brian. It's a real pleasure and honor to be part of this today. I'm learning more and more about you all every day, and it's very inspiring. So it's wonderful to hear the good work you all are doing. What I'm going to contribute today is on the inclusivity side of things. I didn't even know accessibility was a thing in marketing research till about 5 or 6 years ago. I was actually at a Quirks conference and I ran into some folks there that's at that time I had just joined a company that focused on software accessibility, meaning we were trying to make the internet inclusive for everybody. And they said, you really need to hook up with these folks that are forming this consortium called AIC. And it was folks from Verizon. PayPal had not yet been part of it. So we connected, and the next thing you know, it took on a life of its own. And 5 years later, we've got a nice consortium that is partnered up with Insights Association, who we became part of them about a year and a half ago, and we're on our second version of a toolkit. So the toolkit's very robust. Um, I think we've shared out on our LinkedIn some areas where you can basically get hold of the toolkit. If not, I'm glad to provide it to you all. What I'm going to do today, though, is make this a little bit more digestible because the toolkit's over like 110 slides and it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to focus on like 5 things we can do right away to make, I would say, 65% of our work more accessible. And it will also bring universal design benefits to things that we do, whether it's in research or not. I'm going to attempt to share my screen and then show you my slides. Okay. Can everybody see that? I can't see you, unfortunately, now. But if someone could just give me a
I
shout
can
saying
see it.
yes.
We are
I
not
Okay,
cannot
seeing,
see
cool.
it.
Okay, great. Great. So just
we are not seeing your screen,
Oh,
Steve.
you're not seeing it. Oh,
Mhm.
wow. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. That's weird. When we tried it before, let me try it one more time here. Okay, I think this will do the trick. I think I was only sharing a small window.
There we go.
Yep. Can you see the entire screen?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. So to get right onto it, what we'll cover, and I'm going to move quickly because I know we got a really robust schedule here. I'm going to go over the scale of disability, the toolkit. Like I said, I'm going to just distill it down for you all. Some research examples and practice, and the 5 practical takeaways, and then one thing, a model that I built, because I think we've been addressing disability and accessibility all wrong. And just to sort of underscore that, the, the statistic you're going to hear often when people talk about disability, whether it's in marketing research, whether it's the CDC, government, whomever, you're going to often hear 1 in 4 people have a disability. And that's a severe understatement, and I'm going to go over that in a moment. But even if we just use that CDC definition based on their faulty methodology and a lot of other problems that they have with the way they executed that, we're still dealing with a large part of the population. And therefore, people aren't getting recruited into panels and are not participating in research. It could be a reason, by the way, that maybe some of our polling has been really bad lately, is because we're just missing large segments of the population. By the way, those numbers become even more magnified when we start moving up the age segments. So, when you look at younger age versus more senior populations, you'll see the numbers even, the incidence numbers increase greatly on disability. One of the things that I really want to get to beyond the legal framing of it is why it's a market opportunity, not just a checkbox. We're talking about a $1.9 trillion market that's just not having a voice. That's not a number, by the way, that I just came up with out of the sky. In fact, at AIC, we recently had a speaker, Merrill Evans, who I think quoted a much higher number than that. And it's a number that's based in real model, real data. And as a result, one of the things that's the reason why their voices aren't being heard is when I used to work in the environment where we were focusing on web accessibility, we found, and this is through WebAIM, 96% of websites are not considered accessible. And there is good news with that in that there's 6 fixable issue types, but the bad news is companies are not focusing on those 6 fixable issue types. So someone could be colorblind, for example, and they're not able to access certain parts of a website. Their screen reader, if they have low vision, is not allowing them to access the website, etc. So there's a lot of people who are being left out. So one of the things that I'm going to introduce to you right now is the toolbox. And again, I'm going to move through that pretty quickly because it is pretty robust, as I said before. Again, it's developed as part of our partnership with Insights Association. There's no paywall. So just so you know, when you go to that link, there's no paywall. You don't have to register. You can register if you want. You want to join AIC, beautiful. It's great. There's no fee associated with it. And there are, when you get to downloading it, which will be a PDF, by the way, it's accessible. I was the one who was responsible for that. You'll see that it has different sections. So if it looks overwhelming, you can just go to the table of contents and focus on a section that's of interest to you. So if recruitment or platform, I was part of the platform committee, for example, is of interest to you, that you can just go to that section. Survey design is another section, moderation and reporting. just to tell you really quickly about the AIC, like I mentioned before, it's practitioner-led. There's folks that are both on the buyer side of marketing research as well as the supplier side. I kind of fit both because I started my career on the supplier side. Um, I know a lot of people through my years at TNS and what became Synovate, which became Ipsos, where I was in charge of tech research. Eventually, I went back earned a master's 9 or 10 years ago. I didn't go quite as far as Lori did, but I did get a master's of science, and it's in digital innovation in MIS and marketing. And then I moved over to the buyer side of marketing research, where, as Brian mentioned, I worked for Aramark, Apple, and some other organizations, Blue Cross. And so I kind of felt both sides of research. And when you're part of the community, what's great is we don't do any marketing within the community. It's all about just upping our skills in this entire area of accessibility and research. One of the things we often talk about are the principles behind an accessible survey. And we like the acronym POUR, that it's perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. I'm going to convert this into a PDF, so in case you all ever want to refer to these terms in more depth, you'll have the ability to do so. But just to give you a quick rundown, perceivable in a survey would mean we provide alt text in our images, for example. What alt text is, and you'll hear me refer to that frequently, means that if I'm on a screen reader, means I have low vision or I'm blind, and I want to access information. I'm on a screen reader, so things come back to me through my keyboard, literally. If there's an image, the image can be tagged as decorative, which doesn't really tell me very much. It would just mean it's a logo, for example, and it's decorative. Or if we want to go the extra step and put alt text in there, alternate text, means we can actually describe what's in the text, what's in the image, excuse me. There's an art to that. There's literally companies that do classes on that. But to break it down real simply, you can actually go to ChatGPT and ask it. You can share an image with it and ask it to come up with alt text, and it will. The problem is it usually comes up with a laundry list of alt text. You want it to be really succinct. So you want in your prompt, just say, keep it succinct and keep it clear. And that's the key to good alt text. So if you're sharing an image of a logo, for example, instead of just calling it a logo, say it's a logo of Strat 360. Now you're actually telling the person that's consuming the information, you're telling them something meaningful. Operable in a survey would mean that somebody can answer every question by selecting options. And where we sometimes run into problems in surveys, I'm going to show you a real example of this, is on scales. Sometimes our scales are not anchored very well, or we have sliding as opposed to radio dials. And that can cause issues for somebody that might be facing neurodivergent issues, or it could be a laundry list of issues, really. So we want our surveys to be operable. And as far as the you understandable, we want to use plain language. We often say, let's break it down into like 7th or 8th grade language. We used to say 1st or 2nd grade, but we want to make sure that it's at a level that doesn't cause somebody to kind of tune out. So we found that 7th or 8th grade level is usually a pretty good level. It makes sure that things are clear for the person consuming the information. And then robust is that we want to make sure things are labeled. Sometimes it might feel like you're overdoing it by labeling things, but all you're doing is adding clarity, and it's got a universal design benefit to it when you do label things. So I'm going to show you some examples here of things that are broken and how we fix it. So binary questions tend to be one of the things that tends to be a real problem. And I'm going to just jump right into the questions themselves, because I think showing by example is always the best way to do it. So you can see here we have a simple yes/no question about, do you have a physical or a mental disability? Yes, no. Problem is there's a lot of gray area there. So we have found that an accessible alternative would be, which of the following do you experience even occasionally, and select all that apply, because it may not be just one answer. Or you can even check off none. That would be a more accessible way of asking that type of question. By the way, I'm glad to answer questions at the end if you'd like to hold them, just so we can get through the slides, since there's a lot here. Closed-ended questions, where they sometimes break down for us, is I have a partner, for example, who's colorblind. So she has a difficult time in many cases with surveys that are using many different types of color, and they have not been put through any type of accessibility check, which, by the way, there's free tools out there. You can simply Google them that will give you the ability to optimize your color scheme. So sometimes we are not taking that extra step in doing that. So we're eliminating folks who are colorblind, for example. Sliders, like I mentioned before, they can be totally inaccessible. So again, use radio buttons is a good alternative. Timed pages can be a real problem, or auto advance pages. I know, being on both sides of marketing research, we're under pressure to make our surveys more brief and to try to get people through them quicker, but sometimes it's at the expense of them not understanding or actually breaking off, and we have a lower response rate. So we have to really find that balance of the right mix as far as how we want to move people through the process, but at the same time at their own pace. And that's the real key, doing it at their pace. So, when you look at the mean scores of the length of surveys, you might see a wide range, and that's okay. Because you want to make sure you're including people. That's the bottom line, or voices are being left out. Unlabeled scale endpoints is a real issue. I found that when I started learning about accessibility, my scaling became much better, because I was often just giving people a scale, like a 5-point scale, where I would anchor it with a 1 and a 5 and say, okay, 5 is high, 1 is low. That didn't really cut the mustard. I really needed to say what each of those points, what each of those metrics meant. For example, we had somewhat interested and somewhat disinterested in between. People didn't know that. At the end of the day, I was getting better data because now people knew exactly what every point of my scale meant. If it's a 10-point scale, you just want to maybe label it a little bit more on the anchored ends of it and in the midpoint. And here again, some quick examples of where things are broken with the inaccessible design, for example, where we've got the sliding scale versus the radio buttons. And you can see with the radio buttons, we have strongly disagree, neutral, and strongly agree. I would even consider putting in somewhat agree, somewhat disagree in there as well, just so people can understand the relativity of your points. Drag and drop can also be an issue. So often what we found is that giving people the ability to do a numbered text entry, because they can do that on their keyboard, makes it much easier for folks. A click to rank, again, is a much easier solution. Sequential selection, where you ask somebody which is most important, which is second, which is third, which is last, tends to work much better. For open-ended questions, they often look simple because you have a nice little box there for people to type in all their text, but the text box is the biggest barrier often to a survey. Sometimes the field doesn't have contrast, so it's difficult for somebody to tell, where do I put my cursor in this situation? And where do I start and where do I end? How many characters am I allowed to enter? So the more instructions that we can provide to allow people to see as they're typing in real time, for example, how many characters they've typed and maybe what the limit is on that, it just, again, sets expectations in a better way and provides better engagement. In this particular example, where we have, in your own words, please describe your overall experience with this product and tell us anything else you'd like to know. Very open-ended, very kind of loosey-goosey, if you will. A better design would be, what did you like most about the product? Please elaborate. What could be improved? Again, feel free to elaborate. Is there anything else you feel you'd like for us to know? you can see the probes are built in. We're always taught in marketing research that we should be probing our respondents. Well, we're building questions that have probes already built in. When I first started getting into accessibility, I was really big on advanced methods. Um, I used to do a lot of conjoint work, trade-off analysis for the organizations that I worked for. So I was thinking to myself, this is not going to be something that will work as far as being inclusive. And what I've discovered is actually some techniques are very inclusive. For example, max diff works really well because we're asking what's best, what's worse. And it's allowing people to really understand in an easy way how they can navigate on their keyboard, and whether they're using a screen reader or a traditional keyboard, what's best and what's worse. It works very effectively. Where conjoint can be problematic is when we start getting involved with lots of cards, with lots of levels, and it gets our experimental designs, not to get too technical, get really complicated. So one thing that we have found is if we want to have a trade-off analysis study, just have reduced attributes on the card that we're asking about. And by the way, that's just a good practice in general, because sometimes it's hard for people to retain all that information and make decisions in real time when you're just throwing so many different things to them, and they're trying to do a trade-off on whether one product is better than another product or one service is better than another service. So by limiting the number of attributes on a card, we're actually getting universal design benefits that lead us to having a better conjoint design. Here's just a quick example of a standard conjoint card where you might have a premium offering. No alt text, by the way, is the problem with the screen here. Instead, what we want to do is have like we have in the example, a high fiber bar. First off, that's descriptive in itself by calling it a high fiber bar. And then when we have the image, put text around that image so that people know, okay, what does the packaging look like? What does the product look like? You can actually have two different images if you'd like, but each would have their own unique description with it. Include what the size of the bar is so they know, are they getting an 8-ounce, a 4-ounce, a 16-ounce bar? What is the price associated with it? And then what is the tier that it would fall into, which would be text and an icon to describe that. So again, we're just being more detail oriented in the way that we're approaching the questions and the way we're asking it. Focus groups, where they tend to break down, is actually before the session. We're just not doing a good job in some cases of determining, do people need accommodations? By accommodations, we mean, do they need anything that we may not have provided if we just made assumptions? For example, I would always include card or closed caption, regardless. Just make sure it's there. A lot of young people like using closed caption anyway because they're multitasking. So it's just a good idea just to embed closed caption during the screening process, and making sure that you have access to that when conducting the group itself, whether it's virtual or in person. There's etiquette that we like to make sure that we include. There's, again, classes that are offered on disability etiquette. You could probably find a lot of it just on LinkedIn. I know there's a lot of times some organizations are doing those complimentary just because it's just a good practice. And at AIC, I know we've actually had sessions on disability etiquette. Somebody who co-presents with me at some conferences, Kristen, is blind, and she has led some of those. I might reach out to her again to do another because I think we're probably due for one soon. So again, if that's something that interests you, feel to reach out, and I can make sure you're included. Your invitation is included when we start doing those. But it's a really good thing because until we started doing research with various people in the community, and again, disability community is not a monolithic community by any stretch of the imagination. we were making assumptions on maybe we shouldn't ask this question. It's not politically correct. And what we found is actually people were very direct with us and said, no, ask questions. I want you to know what challenges I have so that they can be better addressed when doing research. So there's a great deal to learn when researching the community. Moderation, this comes up a lot. I was just at Quirk's, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, in New York. And, you know, every session, of course, is on AI. And one of the things that people talk about quite a bit is AI assisted surveys and moderation. I've got my own POV on it. Doesn't mean it's the right one. But what I think with AI, and I use AI quite a bit, I consider myself a power user. I think it's very useful in the analytical stages, the presentation stages, and even the design stages of research. I'm not a huge fan of AI moderation. Not to diss those organizations that do it. I think there's a time and place for them to apply it. But I know there's a lot of instances when it's being applied across the board and the dropout rate can be pretty staggering. Or I know I participated in one recently because somebody wanted me to try out their system. And anytime I would say, could you repeat that? Or can you please revisit something? It's got stuck in a loop and it just wasn't a good situation. So I would just say use caution if you're going to use any type of AI moderation and be selective in testing it. And I would even encourage people to test it among folks that maybe are blind or that have low vision, because I think it can be really revealing in different ways. We always say in AIC, regardless of the situation, when we're going over workshops with surveys, you can you can almost not over test. So do a lot of pre-testing and make sure you do a lot of testing, because you'll be able to address a lot of issues if you do that. Something that I just kind of feel strongly about is the moment a participant with a disability feels heard rather than processed is the moment you get honest data. I think that sometimes we get caught up in trying to get to the endpoint as opposed to the quality of the endpoint. And I think it's just really important that we want individuals to feel heard, and we want to even do a better job of circling back with them after they're heard when we're allowed to. I know there's certain sensitive studies that we do where we can't always share information, but there's other times where we can share information in aggregate, and we maintain confidentiality of respondents. It really goes a long way in leading to credibility and allowing people to know that their voice was not only taken, but it was heard and it was actually being leveraged. And that's even the stronger message is after we leverage their voice, if we're doing something really good based on that information, let's share it back to the marketplace and demonstrate to them that, you know what, you just didn't go through hoops for the sake of it, but actually we leveraged that information and we created, a better mousetrap, or we created something that is more meaningful to the marketplace, or we learn from our mistakes. So I'm going to go over some examples here. These are real scenarios. Concept tests. We have situations where we've pulled real samples of concept testing where actually 30% of the audience literally dropped out. And much of it was due to drag and drop ranking, where there was no accommodation or no alternative question. And that's, by the way, something else that we can offer to respondents, that if we have a stakeholder or a client that's really locked into a certain methodology of the question, offer an alternative for somebody that needs an alternative way of answering that question. And then they can click on that. And that way we've still retained their voice and we've retained the methodology that the client was very wedded to. On FDA and patient-reported outcomes, often there's something called Section 508 which calls for us to use assisted technology, compatibility, and plain language. And pharmaceutical research is actually setting the standard on this. And market research should expect to have that same standard set. It's just happening in a little bit slower, but that's just something to be aware of, because like I said, pharmaceutical research is doing a really good job in that area. And we have found that other segments, or I should say other industries of research are starting to follow suit with that. Color blindness, again, which I mentioned, is close to my heart. When doing NPS, for example, we ran a tracker and we found that without the numeric labels, 8% of men that have red or green vision deficiency were unable to answer that NPS question effectively, or I should say accurately. It turned out it was 50 respondents out of 1,200. So they could not distinguish the middle of the scale at all. And the fix was as simple as just adding numbers to the scale and text anchors. And it mitigated the sample bias that we were finding. So these are the 5 things that we can do today, tomorrow, whenever we feel like it, that will help us immediately get our research in a more accessible place. First takeaway is design for everyone rather than try to retrofit after the fact. And what I mean by that is ask your review questions before you even go into programming. The 3 review questions that you can just ask are, could a blind person or respondent navigate this questionnaire? Could a deaf participant follow the in-depth interview stimuli? Could someone with a motor impairment complete this ranking task? If you ask those 3 questions, you're going to be surprised how often you're going to say, hey, you know what, they can't, so I need to go back and fix it. And you will be adding a universal design review when you do that, because you're going to be making it better for everybody. Second one is audit your survey platform. Often easier said than done. It means that whether you're using Qualtrics, SurveyMonkey, regardless of whatever you're leveraging, do a complete audit on it. Oftentimes, by the way, the platform provider, because I know many of them, I've had conversations with them, they will have something that might be in the hopper that they're working on that they'll be glad for you to, you know what, if you're willing to test this for us, we'll roll it out for you. And it may help with a particular segment of the market that you're trying to survey, or it might bring a universal design to everybody, universal design benefit to everybody. So one of the things that I often look for is, can the survey be navigated on a keyboard only? So do I need to use a touchpad or a mouse? Will it work with VoiceOver? It's another thing I immediately look for. If it'll work with NVDA or VoiceOver, then I know it's going to be screen reader compliant. Is the contrast a set? And does it have flexibility for body text? Sometimes, again, it's pretty tiny stuff, and we can bring a universal design benefit if we have the flexibility of being able to adjust the font size of the text. And are all form elements properly labeled? Again, very key is labeling those elements. Those are 2 of our takeaways. The third one is to add an accommodation question to every screener. Very simple thing to do. Just by simply making a standard, not exceptional, 1 line, do you need an accommodation to participate fully? Question. You're addressing folks' accommodation requirements right off the bat. And it also signals that you're approaching things in an inclusive way, and you'll start capturing respondents that you were missing before, right off the bat. Train your colleagues, your team members on disability etiquette. We have in the toolbox 90 minutes is enough to start. I would say, living in the real world, look at what your situation is, and start small. I often talk about small wins or big wins, and it's better if you can apply, say, 15 to 30 minutes to this as opposed to 0 time. So I would just try to, approach these things in a practical way. And if you've got, the ability of doing 30-minute sessions, great. If you don't, though, maybe apply, a 15-minute session twice in the area of etiquette, and then have the ability to provide follow-up information for people. And then finally, the last one, and this will really help a great deal in your research life and your non-research life. Make your next report screen reader ready. Write descriptive alt text for every chart and graph. So, for example, if you're providing a report or an analysis and you've got bar charts, make sure again there's text around those bar charts so that somebody on a screen reader knows that that if they're accessing the bar that's red, that stands for 40%. So embed percentages within those bar charts. Run the final PDF if you're using a PDF, which is something I'll be doing if you all want that. I'll have to run it through Acrobat, and it's not just running it through Acrobat. There's a special PDF checker. It's a premium that they charge extra for. So it only takes 3 minutes, but what it does is it tags all the text in the PDF. By tagging it, it allows somebody with a screen reader to know what that text is. So again, it's a very effective tool. If you don't have access to it, there are some online tools outside of the Adobe world. They're not going to be as comprehensive. They're not going to cover everything. But even again, if you're finding 30 to 50% of the issues through that, you're doing a better job than you were before. Oftentimes, what you could do is go to somebody in the community. They're more than willing to run it through a PDF checker for you. And so if you go to someone in the community that's blind, they might be willing to do that for you because they're helping other folks. So just want to get to the final part of this where I talked about measuring disability, and what about if we've been measuring it wrong the entire time, which I think we have. So I developed something called the STEP model, and it's a new way to look at incidents in the disability community. So what we've been using with the 1 out of 4 number in the past has been the permanent disability number. It's what we call traditional disability. The ADA, the CDC definitions address that, and that's why the number comes out around 15 to 20%. However, what we're leaving out is, and I'm just going to walk you through the model real quickly, is situational, temporary, and episodic, a la the acronym STEP. Temporary can be caused by environment. That could be something where it's a temporary barrier. COVID, for example, is a good example. It could be something where I tore my ACL a number of years ago. I was temporarily in a cast, and so I had mobility issues. That would be temporary. Situational could be woman has a baby. She's carrying the baby around, so she can't access a keyboard. Situational. Episodic can be something that's symptom-free, but they're having trouble going through it could be a survey because of I'm going to use the same word, situational, but it's episodic in that a good example is like a migraine headache where, gosh, I can't do that right now or today, but I'll be in a better place to participate tomorrow. And once you start looking at all these different conditions, it really changes things quite a bit as far as the statistics. So our traditional measure is 50 to 20%. The STEP estimate is 55 to 70%. Major multiplier there of 3.5 times. The reason I put a range around it, the 55 to 70, is because situational is not permanent, temporary is not permanent, episodic isn't necessarily permanent. Also, there's a lot of overlap. So I didn't simply build the model by just saying, okay, we've got 15 to 20% that are permanent. We have 10% that are temporary, 20% that are episodic, and just started adding these numbers up. I didn't do that because there's overlap. So I went back through all the data, looked at overlap, and then reran the numbers based on that. Took a while. It's pretty heavy duty stuff. Assuming the 55 to 70% is right, and I have been running this by a lot of other folks in the accessibility community who feel not only confident, but they think it should be the new way of looking at things. It changes everything because it says that our sampling and recruitment has been way off. Our platform investments need to be better because we're going to have a better ROI at the end of the day, especially when we look at that 1.9 trillion dollar number I shared earlier. Our client conversations should really change. It shouldn't be about, we need to make it accessible because it's the right thing to do. It should be about, what, we're leaving out 55 to 70% of the population, and we're not getting the voices captured that we want to listen to. So it's going to really impact us as far as having good quality, high quality research. And as far as industry advocacy, all the stuff I just mentioned matters. But at the end of the day, market sizing, data quality, ethics is all important to having these conversations.
Thank you, Steve. I think we are out of time.
And that's it, by the way.
That's good. I know there's a couple of questions. Maybe we can answer those offline. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brian. But thank you so much. I think we all learned a lot. Even I learned a little bit, and I've been involved with AIC for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate it. Taking the time to look at this in a new way because honestly, I know there's a ton of folks who we are missing in our research. And it's because of this classification, because we haven't done things to make it more accessible to them. The simplest thing you can do out there when you're doing things communicating is to add alt text to your images. Do things. There's so many little things you can audience, and I think it has gone undercounted for years. I wanted to, before I let you guys go, if you're a consultant, if you're work for a small company and you're looking to get some exposure with the ICN, $500 go a long way to sponsoring, to getting exposure with the ICN. We'll share it every time we do breakout sessions, every time we do on these Monday meetings, just like Cranbook Search and Market Research Guy down here in the corner here. So contact us if you're interested. Contact Scott. Also, go to Green Book. We've got a new success story there that came to us. Sandeep Bansal. This guy was an EMT during COVID, and he said that's enough. And he changed his career, and he's now successful at Comcast Universal, a totally different position. So go read that. That's on Green Book, and also as you'll see to Green Book, so you can find them there every time you go and read a Green Book story, Insights career story. Bunch of jobs on the Insights job referral list. Make sure you go there at insightscareernetwork.org, and you'll find new jobs from 8 Acre, Perspective, Jasper Column, Walter and Weller and Company listed a new job there, a med tech job, Wizards of the Coast, Panera, Tropicana, all these great jobs. If you're looking for more assistance, go to the website, look for these recordings, find all the decks that we've got. If you need access to a new free tool, a question pro will give you free access as an ICN member. Contact us. You can find all that information online. Thank you so much for coming.